Welcome to the CMO Chapter podcast, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of Chief Marketing Officers. Join us as we explore the careers, insights, and strategies of top marketing executives who shape the brands we know and love. Whether you're a seasoned marketer, aspiring CMO, or simply just curious to understand what it really takes to step into the shoes of a CMO. This podcast is your backstage pass to discovering what it's like to really lead and innovate in the ever-evolving landscape of business. Stay tuned as we uncover the stories of the visionaries behind the brand. I am super excited today to welcome the one and only wonderful Stacey Maher.
Thanks, Lucy. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Well, look, I'm super excited to have you on the show. I've known you for, it feels like, 6 or 7 years now, quite a while.
Yeah.
And I thought, over those years, you've done so much throughout your career, and not just in marketing, you've got that broader experience, specifically across being a GM, across, various, whether it be chief commercial officer type roles or operations, it's got that real breadth. So I thought, let's get you on. Let's talk a little bit more about you. Let's put you in the spotlight. So before we get into it, I'm going to start. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you first, Lucy, for having me on your podcast. It's really good to be here. So Stacey Maher, Melbourne-based, and to your point on my career, I was thinking about that last night on what kind of sums up my career, and I think the three words I came up with were non-linear, unplanned, and late bloomer. So that's probably how I sort of see my career unfolding, and it really did start in a non-traditional kind of way. I finished high school and was going to do an accounting degree, of all things.
Right.
Yep, and then decided, no, I'm going to go overseas instead. So I moved to London for a couple of years, and that's when I fell into marketing. So I discovered marketing when I was overseas, and I got a job to basically fund the next trip, and started working for a sports marketing company, and got into this marketing gig and went, hey, this is pretty cool. I didn't teach this in high school. So then came back to Melbourne, and then sort of, I guess, started my career probably back on home soil. And so started in that marketing space, marketing coordinator, events. And then to your point before, just other roles popped up along the way. I can't say I sort of were specifically planning. So moved into various digital product roles. Go to market became a thing. Go to market was, how do you take products to market, the value propositions, the stories, the segmentation, and then had the opportunity. So that sort of gave me the product marketing, go to market space. And then a bit further down, I was able to step into a general management role, which then gave me the operations and the sales and the channel pieces, sort of being call center and we're building out the socials and all that at the time. So it's sort of been a non-linear career. It probably wasn't the traditional. If I had a thought about a career in marketing, it would have been the marketing coordinator, the marketing assistant, the marketing manager, the senior marketing manager, the group marketing manager, the CMO. It probably wasn't a vertical. It was probably a scattered stepping stone that was a little bit unplanned, but I'm very grateful for it, because it's given me the breadth, and it's given me the ability to look across a business and see how the pieces fit together. And so not super planned, but that's sort of the road that I took.
It can be a bit of it's interesting, because I asked this question to, many CMOs, leaders in general, tell me about how you developed, your career. And a lot of them, number one, it's not linear.
Yeah.
And I don't really necessarily ever really is. It's like playing corporate hopscotch almost. Somehow get to the end point by hook or by crook. So tell me, I guess, I look at yourself and, you've had quite senior roles for quite some time. So have you always had that drive and ambition to get to being that leader sort of component? Is it something that, you had your sights set on quite early on, or how did that sort of evolve?
Yeah, it's probably shifted a little bit too more in recent years. I think as you do get older and a bit more comfortable in your space. I don't know that I was ever sort of when I grow up, I want to be CEO of a
Yeah.
company or a CMO, or
Yeah.
but for me, it's always been I enjoy working in business. I enjoy the business levers. I like solving business problems. And so for me, it was where can I work somewhere that I'm adding value, that I'm enjoying, and how far can I go?
Yeah.
Whatever that means. And that definition has probably changed. And what it means has probably changed over the years. So, where it might have been maybe I get to be a CEO of a mid sized company, and maybe that's still it, or maybe it's a chief role somewhere working on something I'm super passionate about. So it's sort of that non-linear, it evolves. For me, it's just what am I working on that I'm enjoying, adding value, leaving the business or the portfolio in a better place than when I found it. That's kind of the goal. And I think there's also the further up you get that you do start getting into trade-offs. So
Yeah.
and salaries and rems are about time, buying your time,
Yeah.
buying your strategic mind. And so it's, how far do you want to go, and what are you prepared to not give up, but what are you prepared to balance as you move through those different roles? So that's again just interesting, and it's observation. And so for me, it's just kind of like I just want to keep going until I decide I'm ready to stop.
And you mentioned quite early on there, so you actually, and I didn't know this about you, but you actually earlier on in your career, so you were, is it Europe? I'm guessing you would have
Yeah, I
taken
did
some
the
time.
very cliche, go to London, pick the
Yeah.
furthest point on the planet and stay there for a couple of years, and just use London as the base to travel around Europe. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I was actually a bit lucky too. The sports marketing company I fell into did a lot of travel, so I got to do some free travel.
Oh my gosh, even
Yeah.
better. Amazing. Amazing. It's interesting. There's a few, CMOs, leaders, etc., that I've interviewed, and they've done the same. Where if maybe early on in their career, well, they've took a transfer, perhaps through a role, and they've been able to work in Singapore, or where. How beneficial do you think that was for your career, being able to take that time to do that?
I think it was a great experience at that point in time for where I was at. I mean, let's face it, I probably doing an accounting degree probably wasn't the path for me. So I think taking this overseas step, and I was young at the time, and so
Yeah.
it was the independence as well, standing on your own 2 feet. You didn't have mum and dad behind you. And so I think that helped build a bit of my self resilience, a bit of, you've got to have this. You're on the other side of the world. Um, and so I think that sort of probably built character. I guess probably some of the values and characters of me as an individual. And then it helped me find a path in marketing. At high school, marketing wasn't really a subject back then. You weren't sort of taught about, there wasn't a huge array of the business subjects. It was sort of very accounting
Yeah.
and medical and that sort of thing. So it helped me just look at things differently, develop my own character, and it helped me find marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're completely right on that. I think, I say to anyone who's aspiring to sort of maybe get to a leadership component, even if you're really early on in your career, if you can get that exposure overseas, I say to anyone, do it. That's my personal
Yeah.
view. I think it just broadens your horizons and gives you a different perception as well. I want to talk a little bit more let's talk about battle scars. We'll get right into it. We've gone from going overseas to battle scars. So when we kind of, as we know, like when you walk in it, working in the environments that you have, some of these companies, we're talking like enterprise, like they're huge. And there's times where it's bloody hard work. It's tough. There's days when, or weeks or months even, when, you're banging your head against a brick wall. You've got difficult certain stakeholder groups or leaders. You constantly, you're in that rat race. Is there any specific sort of like, I guess, career challenges or anything that you sort of look back and go, you know what, that actually really shaped me to be the leader that I then became?
Yeah, there's probably a few. I think with any organization actually, so whether it's mid, large, there's an org structure on paper. So there's the organizational structure you had when you start. And then there's an org structure that's not on paper. And that's the structure of getting things done. So I think it's really important to understand what's the undercurrent of how things work. How do you navigate the system? How do you work through others to get things done? And so again, it's that real cross business view that you've got to take. So it's understanding the wider business, where you fit in, and then what's other people's problems. So how do you get out and understand, there might be a problem over in a product space or in finance or in operations, and then is what you're doing a way to help, or are they doing something and you're doing something similar, and could you combine and get efficiencies for the business, whether that's capex or opex or time to deliver, and just build. I think it's building those networks and those relationships through understanding and seeing the problems in the wider part of the business. So I think that can take you a while to work that out, but it's
Yeah,
time well spent. And I think as you move through your career, you get faster at spotting the movement points and the where to plug in first.
yeah,
And I think on a personal front, you've just got to manage your energy in those spaces, and it's a long game. So, what do you need to do to balance your life and your wellness and that kind of thing? So, how do you stay resilient? How do you keep your
yeah,
energy? And then you've also got to learn how to pick your battles. So, we all
yeah,
want everything, and we all want to make things fabulous, but what are the activities you'll die on a hill for, and which ones will you
yeah,
maybe park? At times I've had to park ideas and then try and sort of dust them off and bring them out again,
yeah,
a few years later. And that's okay. That's the long game. And sometimes you get them through the second time, and other times you don't because of competing priorities. So that's probably something I've had to learn along the way, just understanding the official org design that's there and then the unofficial one.
I think you bang on. I mean, what I'm getting from that is there's one word, and I'd say resilience. That it's what did they say? It's not a sprint, it's a
Yeah.
marathon.
Yeah.
So really are in it for the long game, as you've said. Uh, are there any sort of, if you were going to say to me, look, if you're going to be a great GM, CEO, CMO, whatever it may be, are there any sort of key traits that you'd say a really solid leader needs to have?
I think you've got to balance the strategy and the execution. I think it's you've got to know where you can push the systems and the processes, and in order to be able to push them, you've got to know them. So you've got to understand the nuances. The strategy isn't the 9 to 5 time. Like I find
Yeah.
sometimes you're thinking about things late at night or on the weekend or going for a walk, or you read something somewhere and like, oh, hang on, does that apply to?
Yeah.
So strategy is sometimes out of hours in terms of the way it percolates in your brain, and it's a different kind of energy. And then execution to me is it's the heavy lifting. It's you're in the trenches doing the building and in the
Um,
meetings
uh-huh.
and fighting about the product specs and the tech specs and the copy that's going to market, and is the product right, and are the systems okay, and are we meeting the timelines? And that's I enjoy that. I enjoy the combination of the two, because it's an opportunity to see, strategy is great when it's this presentation and you've got the data that backs it, but execution's when you
Um,
find out how much you've got to pivot, what worked at the time. A few months have gone by getting it signed off, and now what does it look like? And I find that's probably something you need to balance the two. And I think just understanding the wider part of the business, And I think getting really clear on who you're serving. So
Yeah.
really understand the customer and whether that, not everybody is customer facing, but that doesn't mean you can't, double jack on a call center phone and hear the customer queries, hear what they're complaining about, hear what they're loving, go out on a sales call, shadow some meetings if you can with your manager or next one up if they'll let you be in those meetings to hear
Yeah.
the wider parts of the business and how they all fit together. And I
Uh-huh.
think all that sort of helps round you out as a general manager, whether it's the GM with the P&L or GM. It just helps create a rounder view.
Absolutely. And I love the fact, I mean, yeah, I personally have hired, many people in the past, leaders or mid management sort of remit. And it's interesting, especially in that financial services space, if you've worked, in banking, initially, on the call in the call center, they tend to be the best people. Just get the customer from the get go.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Let's talk about, upskilling. So we look at, in 2025 now, everyone's talking about AI. Like some people get really frustrated when I talk about this because they go, well, it's not new. We've had it for
Yeah,
years.
we
And I'm
have.
like, well, it's for them, but not for me. So I'm jumping on this a little bit now. I guess from your perspective, I mean, I find at the moment, like, I don't know, like, not necessarily anyone's the real expert in this, I don't think. I feel like we're all trying to figure it out at the same time, but more so than others. A little bit more advanced further down the track. Like, what's your view? Like, in terms of like how do you see that AI sort of impacting the way that maybe leaders in the future do their role? Like what advice would you give to say leaders that are wanting to really upskill in the future and invest? What would you say they need to focus on?
Yeah, I think from an AI point of view, it's a real. You just got to jump in, play, and read. And I think AI is so many things at the moment, but you've got sort of your generative AI, which is your chat GPT. People are getting
Yeah,
quite familiar with that. You've sort of got your machine learning, which is sort of your contextual feeds and your social computer vision, so reading forms, and that's been around, particularly in some of the insurance industries, being able to read forms to turn around claims
yeah,
quicker. So again, not new to your point before.
yeah.
And natural language programming. So there's kind of the whole, Alexa and understanding commands and requests. You're starting to see people use their phones as well now, sort of speaking with phone
Mm,
calls. So it's sort of understanding those spaces, playing in those spaces. But I think being just really clear first, what's the business problem you're solving? So it's great to walk around, you don't want to sort of have this AI solution looking for a problem. You want to go, what
mm,
is the problem we have in the business? And it's, I don't know, we're not processing claims fast enough, or we don't have enough data on our customer behavior, or we want to do more predictive analytics to serve better, to have better responses from our customers. Or so it's really what's the business problem? And then I think it's work backwards. So
yeah.
at the front end, encourage playing and understanding, and I'm doing it as much as anybody else. So, um, but just be clear on what you're solving before you try and plug something you've learnt last week into a business problem. So, yeah, that would probably be my view. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's a great answer, and I think a very honest answer because we all get the magpie syndrome a little bit, and it's kind of like, oh, we'll go over here. It's really, want to get stuck into this really exciting new thing, and it's almost reminds me a little bit of when apps became a thing, and all of us, you had like businesses go, we need an app, and everyone wanted an app, and I had like marketers and these digital project managers really like pulling their hair
yeah,
out, kind of going, we don't need an app, it's not relevant. But yeah, everyone one.
yeah. Well, I remember very early in my career, when I was we were building out the digital marketing space, and it was new. And I remember the business I was working for at the time said, "Oh, we need to get the Facebook." And well, why? What? We need Facebook. Like get the Facebook. It's sort of that just understanding why. And yeah, to your point, there's been iterations of you know uh, particularly in the digital space. I've been in digital for a long time, and you see these evolutions of things that come up. Socials was, wind back socials 15 years, and where were they at? And wind back further, and you're starting to look at sort of, they were called verticals at the time, your employment vertical and your, vet vertical and your home vertical. And it's now it's like, what? How, what? So I
Mm.
think it's,
Mhm.
just staying open, stay flexible, just read and understand. No, we're all doing it. Again, early in my career, I was like, how does everyone know this digital thing? And now I'm like, no one did. We just we just kind of got in and had a go. So yeah.
Yeah. Love it. I want to sort of talk a little bit more about networking, because it's funny. Some people, when I say the word networking, kind of roll their eyes and go, "Oh, hate networking." It kind of gives them this like shudder. And it's a really hard one because, in this market, which we know is so competitive when you're job seeking and, it just in general, I've seen people really try and utilize their network more so than they ever have
Mm.
well, right now, at least anyway. But how important has it been for you? Like, has it been something you work with, or, what would you recommend to, say, an aspiring leader? Would you say, look, absolutely focus everything onto it, or what sort of, I guess, any successes you might have had from them?
Yeah, I think networking is really important, and it's really easy to forget at times. And networking can be as simple as having coffee with someone from within your business in a different department to just understand what they're doing over there and just how it relates to your role, and just understand, just be curious and meet different people. And it's easy to put those sort of coffees off and go,
Mm,
oh, I haven't got time to an hour to do that. I could,
mhm.
send another 5 emails in that time. That'd be better use of my time. So it's very easy to sort of put it aside and go, I'll do some networking next week.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely something you've got to be conscious of. You've got to plan. It's a long term strategy, I think. So it's, go to events, do things that are outside your comfort zone, sit on panels, meet people outside your industry. Networking sort of not just your friends, it's how do you build more networks, and do it at your peer level, particularly if you're starting out, because you never know where people are going to end up. So
Yeah.
reach out to peers, reach out to senior leaders, just ask. And,
Mm,
I think when you start out in your career, you're sort of like, oh, I don't want to reach out to a senior person, or what will they want to, why would they want to help me? And I think, we were all there.
yeah.
So I just think, just ask. And what's the worst that can happen? They say, I'm busy, but love to catch up later. Or uh, that's, others will be extremely generous and, take you wherever you want to go. So I just think long game. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. It's sometimes an effort, but great things can come from it too. Really great, it can be networks, can be great friendships become formed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
People outside your industry can start to link up passion projects, things outside of just career can happen. So
Yeah.
it's really important. It's a long game, and sometimes it's easy to forget.
Yeah, yeah, I think you bang on there, absolutely. And I think nowadays, like, it's supporting a lot of people as well, like, I think sharing words of wisdom and advice as well. I think, and I think you're right to your point, earlier on in your career, we see these big titles and we think, well, they'd never want to meet with me. Like, wow,
What am I going to say?
yeah. And it's that whole imposter syndrome. And yeah, it's kind of, I know it's easy for us to go, oh, you just got to get on with it and move on. But we all face that at some point, no matter, how old you are or how experienced you are. I don't think that ever goes away, really. I call mine Debbie Downer. On.
Yeah, no, you do have to sometimes, you still get imposter syndrome. You're like, what am I doing here? Or you're in some
Yeah.
situation, or you get asked for something, but I think it's you just got to go, no, we're all breathing the same oxygen, and we all just want to be a good human.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look back at, you've done so much over your career, is there any advice that you would give the 28-year-old Stacey Maher?
Oh, yeah, I think just just say yes. Say yes to things and, roles that come up that seem a bit obscure or people are like, "You'd be great at this," and you're like, "Oh, okay." Just jump in. You don't have to have all the skills and all the qualifications before you could possibly do a role. I think that's probably I hear that a little bit that, everyone's, "Oh, but I don't have this bit of the role." I mean, I have 90%, but not that bit.
Yeah.
I think it's just say yes, jump in, stay curious, do things, read things, study things, not necessarily in your career. Often you'll find threads will link up further down.
Yeah.
I've done
Yeah.
random things like study photography. I'm studying psychology now. It's just things. I'm deeply into the health and wellness and longevity space. Things all link up.
Give it a go.
Yeah, just say yes.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Are there any habits that you've formed or developed that really help you stay informed as a leader? Like, are there any sort of go to resources or people that you follow, or events, or even podcasts or books that you
Obviously, this
potentially,
podcast.
well, of course.
Yeah, I think again, it's just I like to sort of catch up and grab lunch with people. I have friends in advertising that I just really love to catch up and hear some of the other clients they're working on, or just stories or
Yeah.
challenges. And sometimes there's things you're like, that could be really interesting applied to where we are, or um, so it's people outside of your industry, just curiosity of catching up with people. And I saw you did this. How did that work? And why did that happen?
Yeah.
And it's probably not so much a formal way of following, just news and podcasts. Obviously, this podcast.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
well, yeah, listening to podcasts both within the career, but also podcasts of interest. Because I think I was saying before, you just these threads seem to line up at some point. So just stay curious and open. Newsletters, reading industry journals. Yeah, it's probably not so much a formal process, but just staying open to what's out there and being flexible and just following passion points and items of interest. And yeah,
Yeah. And I think, like what you were saying, being very curious, to various different resources or recommendations, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I want to sort of wrap up. So, in terms of really when, just to finalize, when we sort of look at your legacy and impact that you've had on your career, are there any sort of defining moments there that you sort of look back on and go, I'm really proud of that? Or is there anything that, you'd love to be remembered as a leader within the industry? Like anything that really stands out?
um, I've been very privileged to work with and build some amazing teams.
Mm,
And I've there's I'm very passionate about building teams, and I know everyone sort of says building high performing teams, but there's just nothing better than when you've got the right group of people all leaning in, and it just hums, and you can just feel an energy and a vibe, and it's collaborative. Um, and it's just it's great. It's
yeah.
people showing up as themselves, and it's fun and it's hard, but when you've got a good team, it's all doable. And so I just feel, and for me, the team is both your direct reports, but also the cross-functional teams that the teams you rely on to get things done. So I think, yeah, building great teams. I've had some amazing teams that I've worked with and built along the way. And I think at an individual level, just being, you learn it as you move through the career, but just being authentic. And, I'm sort of what you see is what you get,
Yeah.
being transparent, and, putting your hand up if you don't have the answers to everything. I think showing that vulnerability as a
Uh,
leader is something that we should lean into. And yeah, and just sort of, I don't have all the answers. That's why you have great teams. So we all bring different strengths and different components and different views, and that's why it's
mm,
good to stay open. So you bring in different viewpoints, and so I think that's sort of a space that I feel I've been authentic. authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like what you've just said there, actually, because I think 100%, like nowadays, being really vulnerable as a leader, I think is so important. And I think more people should be doing that, if I'm honest. Like, I think it needs to be okay to be a little bit more vulnerable and go, you know what, I don't know the answers, but I'm going to hire smarter people than me that do.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're going to complement each other, and that's how this is going to work.
yeah. And I think the different viewpoints. I mean, you're really here to serve the end customer. So you want to be proud of the work you put out. So whether that's platforms, systems, ecosystems, products, services, channels, you want good work. And to get that, you need lots of different minds and different perspectives. And that's the interesting part of building teams, to have really diverse and collective groups of individuals, because it's the old Gestalt theory, right? So it's,
Mhm.
the sum of all parts. And that's what makes the work easy, and you spend a lot of time at work. So working with good people you can be yourself with, it makes a real difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've really,
No,
really
thanks, Lucy.
enjoyed it. It's been great to have you on the show. And I think there's a lot there that, our listeners are really going to resonate with. I think definitely. I think there's just some real black and white, good old fashioned, authentic, scenarios that you've given us that sort of remind us to actually, to what you're good at, and always be curious, and be more vulnerable as well. I think, yeah, there's definitely elements there that will be a couple of good light bulb moments for our listeners. I've got no doubt.
No, thanks, Lucy. It's been really good to catch up. Thank you.
Amazing. Remember, the road to CMO isn't always linear. It's filled with challenges, decisions, and moments of transformation. Whether you're charting your course or navigating a career shift, the experiences, wisdom shared today, as with our guests, is invaluable. Thank you for joining us. Keep dreaming big, keep pushing boundaries, and remember that your journey towards becoming a CMO is as much about the destination as it is about the growth you experience along the way. Until next time, continue to innovate, evolve, and carve out your path to CMO.